we spent 2 days together. Just a great guy. I introduced him to one of my big clients, which is going to probably be his biggest client ever. Um, and he's like, he goes, Nathan, you and I are in two different worlds. You you make 70 million. You make 70 million. I said, oh, I get it. Trust me, I own a dry cleaners. You did 1.4 million at $1.30 at a time, and
Today, I'm talking with Nathan Jamail. He's a best-selling author, speaker, and leadership coach. Nathan has spent decades helping leaders build high-performing teams and cultures that actually win. In this episode, we dive into the mindset and strategies that turn good managers into great leaders. You're going to get real stories and practical tools you can use right away. So let's jump in. Nathan, so great to have you on the podcast.
great to be here, Matt.
It's good to see you again. We were talking, I want to back up, and you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, right?
Yeah. It was silver-ish.
Silver-ish.
Yeah. It's more plastic, but it had a silver paint on it. No, man, I didn't. I tell people all the time, I didn't grow up poor on dirt floors. My wife did, and I didn't grow up so rich. My parents put me in a boarding school, and I was left alone. I tell people, I think my hardest thing to overcome growing up was I had a pretty awesome, average, loving childhood. Now, I'm gonna say that and tell you the same thing that my parents got divorced when I was 12. I worked full time since I was the age of 15 because my mother was a secretary and I needed to earn lunch money. I'm gonna say that I moved to Florida with my mom. We lived in apartment complexes where they sold drugs, but I never saw myself it wasn't rough. Like it all worked. It was all pretty good.
So take us back to those early days. You said that you kind of started as an entrepreneur at age 14. Tell me more about that and how
Well,
what the early jobs before you started your businesses.
yeah, and I don't know how old everyone in the audience is, but if you're if you're old like me, you remember Family Ties. Since I was a child, my brother used to call me Alex Keaton. Right, Alex Keaton was Michael J. Fox, and he's always in the business, and that was me. I was always about business, and when I was 14 years old, I sold snow cones. My drama teacher in school had a little side hustle, and I sold snow cones for her. And then when I wasn't doing snow cones, I sold the local Picayune newspaper in front of the grocery stores.
So you're selling newspapers, you're selling snow cones. What happened after that? You fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, so I go to college and lasted about 6 weeks, and the guy says, "Yeah, this is probably ain't for you." So I went and sold retail. I went and after about a year and a half of that, someone came to me and said, "You should be an insurance salesman." And you're not self-employed, but you are self-employed when you're an insurance salesperson. So I went and sold life and health insurance at the age of 19. Now, let's be clear, this was in 1992. Internet didn't exist, and I would go to the libraries, and I would look up 2-year-old marriage licenses and for people who were born in the 60s. And because I knew the only person who would listen to a 19-year-old about financial advice is someone in their 20s who didn't know I was 19. And I knew if they got married 2 years ago, the one thing they all had in common is whether they're married or divorced by now, I didn't know. But I knew none of them had money and they needed to save money. So that was my lead source. So I've been kind of, I want to say, hustling since I was a kid, and I mean hustle, I don't mean like the tricky hustle, I mean the hard work side. And so I did that, and then I went in corporate America and decided in 2001 I want to start owning my own businesses again.
I'm going to pause you there for a second. So you're selling insurance. Is this door to door? Or how are you, once you found the marriage license,
Yeah.
how are you contacting these
I would
folks?
call you. I'd say, "Hey, Matt, realize this is 30 years ago. I still know my skit. I still know my bit. Matt, this is Nathan Jamail, Comprehensive Financial Services. I emailed you a letter last week. Don't know." And by the way, you threw it away immediately. I said, "I don't know if you remember what it said, but I happen to sell life insurance, help people save money and plan for futures. I'd love the opportunity to come to your house, spend a few minutes, meet with you and your wife, and talk to you about how I might be able to save you money." That was the bit. And then I'd go and book appointments in the evening, and I would go sit at people's kitchen tables. And that's how I made a living.
What was the best thing that you learned through that whole experience?
Man, I will say there's two. One is how to get up on your own and make things happen. Like there was no one walking in the door. There was no one to make me do anything. I was technically self-employed. I didn't have a boss yelling at me or telling me what to do. You wanted to make a living, you had to go. You wanted coaching, you had to go find it. I find a mentor and I go ride with the other older agents in their cars. The second thing I learned is how to overcome a negative first impression I didn't earn.
Let's unpack that one a little bit. What do you mean by that?
You want to watch how not to win friends and influence people? Tell them you sell life insurance. It's elbows and heels, man. Like they're gone. I don't need any. And a lot of people always thought, "Oh, you're just trying to sell me something." And so I didn't earn that first impression because it was based off what I did for a living and not who I was. And so I learned that I have to overcome that quickly by being who I am and being authentic. And so I think that helped me in my professional career as I got older because I was very young. But I think those are the two things I took from that business. I mean, it's a hard business. I would say starting my life insurance business was just as hard, if not harder, as starting my dry cleaners, starting my mortgage company, starting my wife's art with my wife now in art studios for children for over a decade that we sold, and starting my speaking career. Like I think that helped me, like when I'm going to start a business, because I think that's the hardest part for new entrepreneurs is you have to trade in the paycheck for profits. The problem is you have to get rid of the paycheck today. Profits don't come for a couple of years.
I think the average employee works based on time. You show up and you get a check versus an entrepreneur gets paid based on results.
That's right. Listen, I deal with a lot of small, successful entrepreneurs. And and even when we owned our dry cleaners, I fast forward our cleaners, we've owned them for at this point in time 7 or 8 years. We're actually having somewhat a profit. You know, the first 3 years, my father we could take his paychecks that we couldn't afford to deposit and play cards with him, right? And so once we started making enough money where my dad could start depositing paychecks, I said, you need to let's go get a couple of new trucks. Our trucks are old. And he says, I can't. If I drive a new truck, son, and the cleaners, everybody's going to want a raise. I said, call a meeting with all the employees. And so I flew into town, did a meeting with all the employees, and I had the conversation of paychecks versus profits. And I deal with this right now today with employees. When I have some clients who are very successful and their employees like, well, I help them make 30 million. Well, yeah, but you're not entitled to 30 million. You're entitled to a paycheck for time. I said, if you want profits, go put everything on the line. Go leverage everything you got. Put your family at risk. And I say at risk, I don't believe you really put your family at risk. I think it's more ego, but put everything on the line, willing to go broke. You do that and go open your own business and you can have profits. Until then, if he makes $1 million or $100 million, you're still entitled to a paycheck because all you did to get the job was interview. They put everything on the line. And so, yeah, listen, I tell my kids all the time, I hope one day you work for profits, but I don't, but don't hate the paycheck. But if you're gonna make the change, you gotta be willing to give up the paycheck.
Yeah, there's certainly no guarantees as an entrepreneur. So you went from selling life insurance, and then did you go into the corporate world after that?
I did. So I went in telecom. I sold beepers and pagers to corporations. In
Old
fact,
school beepers.
yeah. In fact, a short time in there, so I moved from Indiana to Texas, and I knew I didn't want to. So when I got to Texas, I was going to be an insurance salesman in Texas, and I didn't have it, Matt. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I don't want to start all over. And I went and sold. I always wanted to sell. I liked cars. I was young. I wanted to sell cars, so I did that for about 8 months, selling cars. I sold luxury Lincolns, like Lincoln Town cars. First time I ever seen someone write a $30,000 check because I didn't have 30 cents. And my sales manager came to me and said, hey, kid, you're young and you're talented. You need to get out now because you're going to get stuck here. And so that's when I went to telecom. So that's when I went to pagers. I sold beepers. For those of you who don't know what beepers are, it was before phones. We used to drive around with rolls of quarters in our car, right? Find a payphone and call the customer. And I did that, and that's where I started. In fact, to start that job, I had to go to my local bank and borrow $1,500 so I could pay rent for the next 2 months because when I went to sell pagers, there was no paycheck during training.
Mm.
So I borrowed $1,500 so I could pay my rent for the first 2 months of selling beepers.
So how did you end up exiting the corporate world?
So I did pagers and then I went into Sprint. So I was one of the 100 and something employees for Sprint Wireless. I became a regional manager in New Orleans and they were great to me, man. And so, right place, right time. I became a corporate sales manager. I was a corporate sales manager for Mobilecom in New Orleans. Then Sprint came and got me. I did that for about a year and a half. Then I became the new director in Tennessee. So I launched the Memphis, Tennessee market. And then from there, regional director in Dallas, and then did a stint in Puerto Rico, and so I did Sprint and telecom for over about 10 years, right at 10 years, and so let me try and piece this together. So that was 2005 when I left Sprint, but I opened my first dry cleaners in 2001. Uh,
So you've got a dry cleaner in 2001. You're working that as kind of a side hustle?
Well, my dad is. So in
Your dad
2001,
is?
I got the stock money. I invested it, lost half of it. Said that's a bad. I'm not good at this. So I called my father, who was power washing buildings in Austin, Texas, where I grew up, and I said, "Hey, you need a better job. I need a good investment, and let's be business partners." And my father and I have been business partners since 2001. Still lives on the ranch with me today. And that's how I got my first. I said, find a business, and we looked at storage sheds and car washes, and we got into dry cleaning business. And that was 2001. So I'm still working full time at Sprint. I'm just funding it. He's running it. We built the building, bought the land, all of it, I'm just funding it, and he's doing it. And that was '01. We opened in '02, and so that's kind of where I got the itch. And let's be clear, my dry cleaners, I lost $110,000 in the first 90 days.
Ouch.
It was a beatdown. Like, if you want to know how not to start a business, I got that book. I haven't written that one yet. I've written 5 others, but here's what I do. I do believe. I believe a hard start creates a long lasting future.
I like that. A hard start builds a long lasting future.
Yeah, because you and I first were talking. You said, "Tell me about your what was it you called my dips? Would you?"
The dip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife and I were just talking about it. If you know what a sine wave is, there's kind of a downward wave and then an upward wave. And if you put them together, it really creates kind of a circle. And I think nearly everybody that I've talked to has some sort of dip in their life. And when you look at the dip, it's the rocket fuel to get to the next level or to get you to the next orbit. And the dips are really painful. Nobody loves going through a dip. But to me, everything I've seen and all the people I've talked to say that that dip was got them to the next level. So you lost $110,000 in the first 90 days. How did that help you springboard to the next level?
Well, again, I think my blind optimism and ignorance is really a blessing. Because although it was a terrible financial dip, I got to take it off my income that year. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't that bad. Um, and I mean, I got dips much bigger than that coming right around the corner. I wasn't aware of. And so fast forward 2005, I decide I'm going to leave corporate America, and I go tell my boss, "Hey, I want to go do my own thing." And at this point in time, 30 days prior to this, my brother called me and said, "Are you ever going to start that speaking business?" And I'm living in Laguna Beach at this time, and he's in Dallas, Texas. And he says, and that's where my dry cleaners are, in Dallas. And he says, "Are you going to start that public speaking business?" I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Great. I just quit my job. Will you hire me?" Went from hypothetical to reality real quick. And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Get a film crew, rent a ballroom, let's do a training video." And I flew into Dallas the following week. We had 15, 20 people in the room, a couple of dudes and cameras. It was, Matt, the worst video you've ever seen in your life. Back then, I thought it was spectacular. But if I saw that video, I'd be like, I wouldn't even hire this guy to do a training class for my kids. And I spent a bunch of money. I put Blake on payroll. And then I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open another business. And my mother was an underwriter in the mortgage business. I said, "Mom, here's what we're going to do. You're going to come work for me. How much do you make?" She tells me what she makes. I said, "Done. Let's do it." Because I figured I might go broke, but I'll make money sooner or later. Everything works out for me. And so I did. Fast forward, because I'm still making a pretty good paycheck at Sprint. Now I'm going to separate July 2nd. This is where the big merger's happening with T-Mobile or Nextel, I think it was back then. This is Nextel back then. And I'm getting my package, good 7-figure package. I get terminated 2 days before that day, 2 days before my package.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you had stock money. And so that's how you were able to finance the other businesses. Is that right?
Yeah. I had stock options back at the time. Well,
Okay.
when you are terminated for cause, you lose all, if you get a package, all your options vest and you have all these great things. Well, when you are terminated, like, all that money goes away,
Oh,
except what you already own. And so, now let me be clear. I'm not like, Sprint's the greatest company in the world. I mean, they were awesome to me. I love all the people I work with. this is, I wrote in my book, what makes you successful will get you fired, and you got to be willing to live that way. I still stand behind everything I did, and I stand behind everything that was done. But it was the right thing for them and the wrong thing for me. Long story short, I think it was God telling me, you know what? You need to have a little less runway to get this plane off the ground. And so,
I want to pause for a second.
yeah.
Tell me more about this. What makes you successful will get you fired.
So what makes you successful is you got to do the right thing even when it's not popular. It's kind of like I do a lot of leadership consulting right now and coaching. I'm real big on accountability. If you don't do your job, you should no longer have that job. And the reason, and I don't believe in managing people out of fear. I believe everyone has the ability to be successful. They just have to make sure they're doing the thing that they're successful at or can be successful at. And so a lot of people keep jobs they don't want or they're not good at because they think they need a paycheck. A lot of employers keep people they don't want to keep because they think they need an employee. And so they're both staying in this bad financial marriage out of fear. And so when I took over Sprint, I removed we it was over 20% of the employees. We had over 500 employees. And everyone who didn't want to be there, my goal was to find them happiness. And so with that, and especially in California, there came a lot of consequence to it. And as long as I was going to be the next, I was the number one director 6 out of 7 years. And so as long as I was the one that can lead us to the promised land, I had all kinds of support. Well, those bold decisions that helped me be successful. At the end of the day, when we needed to find a reason to get rid of Nathan, it's pretty easy.
So you had employees who weren't performing, and I'm guessing you fired them or coached them out. And then ultimately that was the reason that you were fired because you had done your job and maybe
No, they didn't give it that. My reasoning from the actual termination, the actual reason for my termination was that I was not honest to the investigation group. Which, because somewhere in and dude, they were amazing investigation group. Like you would spend all day or 2 days with these people, and they're ex FBI people. Like they're badasses. They're awesome. And then when you get done, they have a document, a transcription of the conversations. Well, I was young. It was, I don't know, 20 something pages long, and I just signed it.
oh no.
And in there it says, "I'm sorry, I wasn't completely honest with corporate security in the beginning. I did not see that." And that one sentence, my boss came to me, a great guy, and I said, "How did no one stand up for me?" He goes, "Listen, man, if no one's," and this is where the chapter came in. He looked at me and I says, "Listen, I was told if someone stands up, they're going to get the bullet instead of you, and you can handle it. You're young, you're single, you got no kids, you can figure it out."
Wow.
That's right. And again, no resentment. I mean, my feelings were hurt, but
Yeah.
it's what got me here. My wife and I say, and we didn't make this up, we stole it from someone. Nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us. This is why I always say, yeah, that was terrible, but I still sold 2 houses in California and came to Texas with a bunch of money. Like I didn't move here. I moved here a hell of a lot better than most people, right? And so, I mean, quite candidly, we were making 2 house payments for 12 months and didn't even know we were making 2 house payments. So we weren't that bad off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was in 2005. December 2007, I had to go to my wife, or maybe eight. It was eight. And I had to go to my wife and say, "Hey, we're out of money. Like, we're out. In 30 days, we will not be able to make the house payment or the car payments. And we need to make a decision." At this point in time, I still had a good enough network. I could go get a corporate job in a couple of weeks and go be a VP somewhere and make a good living. And my wife looked at me and says, "Baby, I was born poor. I was raised poor. I'm not afraid of poor. You always say live in the dream. Live your dream. We can live in an apartment. We'll be fine." The next week, my preacher came to me after church and said, in Frisco, Texas, and he says, "Hey, I'm on a board of a company. I think you can help them." And that was my first consulting contract. And that's what kept me alive. Now, I tell people all the time, I make more money now than I made the first 4 years of my business in 1 hour. I make more money in an hour speech now than I made my first 4 years. And let's be clear, it's not because I make so much money in an hour. It's because I made so little money the first 4 years.
So tell us a little bit more about your coaching and how you help companies. What are some of the principles that you use to help a company get to the next level?
Matt, it really depends on where they are. So most of my clients that I have on coaching, they're typically somewhat already successful, and I'm helping them on their relationships, on their leadership. Like I coach a lot of their leaders because they're entrepreneurs, but they're not coaches. And so a lot of them have a sales leader. They don't know how to coach a sales leader. They don't know what good looks like. I have CFOs or guys who have a successful shipping business, but they don't know the sales or the accountability or the coaching side of the employees. So I help entrepreneurs in that side of the world with their like the leadership side, all the things about the employees. On the other side of the business is I have a lot of conversations with people who want to become entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you, I probably talk more people out of it than into it because I think you need to go in with your eyes wide open. And so sometimes I'm helping new entrepreneurs just get over that to your, Phil, let's call it, put a little dirt in that valley so it's not so deep. And so that's what I help leaders with on today.
Can you give us some examples? You had two things that I really liked. One was you help them define what good looks like, and then accountability. Can you unpack one of those?
Yeah, so let's talk about what good look. We'll unpack both of them in the same because it's the same principle that we're teaching. We're teaching leadership employee coaching, and when let's say you own a trucking company, or let's use a manufacturing business. I have a client that manufactures concrete pipe, and one of the jobs of that is this gentleman, awesome, super stud, knows concrete, knows construction, knows the business, can walk into his plant that's 1,000 acres, hear a noise and say that thing's broken, right? And he knows business. He's just got it. Well, when it comes to salespeople, he doesn't know sales. He knows I go out and meet the contractors and build relationships, but how to make them better, how to teach them, how to ask questions, the true skill of turning relationships into money ships, how to overcome the objections or unseat the incumbent, like all that stuff is skills, and he didn't have that. And the question becomes, I'll give you a perfect example. If I ask a salesperson to leave a voicemail and I ask my client, how does that sound? He's like, well, it sounded good. I said, would you return the call? He goes, no, I don't return any of them. So it's not good. And so what does the right appointment look like? And if this person says everything they can about the company, which is a very good pitch, it's not a good sales call. He doesn't know what good looks like, or at least not to the level of what he wants me to do. And so my job is to coach people on selling skills, or in most cases, quite candidly, leadership, how to teach selling skills, how to teach leaders what good looks like. Because and this is why a lot of people tend to let people do their job until they don't do it well. And Matt, if I hire you to do your job and I don't make you better, you're doing good for me because you're doing good enough. But if I just wait till you fail to get involved, my involvement is a consequence in the failure. And so I'm never really helping you. You're trying. In fact, this is why most people say my goal is to be so good my boss leaves me alone. And the reason why that's a negative thing, my question for bosses is, if your employees, and by the way, many of us have said it, if your goal is to be so good your boss leaves you alone, how valuable is your boss? Not at all. And so what I help leaders do is listen, spend time with those who deserve the attention. Teach those, because if you spend your time with your superstar, you'll get a better return on your investment. Others will want your attention. And so I help owners and leaders change this archaic kind of management style that lives on a principle which I believe is the worst quote of all time. That is, I hire good people and let them do their job, which I think is terrible. I mean, can you imagine the NFL drafting a first round quarterback and saying, okay, we'll see you on Sunday? No, you hire the best person and you make them better. This is a perfect example of why people hire, and this is a whole another topic. But this is a whole reason why people make the greatest mistake of hiring industry experience. We don't hire industry experience because our industry is complicated. No industry is complicated. We hire industry experience because they hit the ground running and it's easier on us. And we think they'll bring in customers and I don't have to train them as much. But if you hire the person and spend time with them, you'll get a long-term reward because you hired a better person and not a better piece of paper. And so those are the things that I deal with leaders on, whether it's, I have clients who are in the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and I have clients like my buddy I was telling you about who make concrete pipe.
So in your books, you talk about this idea of practice, discipline, and scrimmaging. We do it in sports. We do it in EMS. We put all of our students through scenarios so that when they go out there, they've encountered something similar to the real thing. But it seems like the corporate world doesn't do that.
Well, let me tell you something. One of my clients is U.S. Army, and I remember doing an event for them. I said, if you treated leadership the way you treat your job and training, you'd be 10 times the leaders. Like if like you do, you're paramedics. They have no issues pretending there's a sick person on the ground, pretending to resuscitate them, pretending them how to put them on a stretcher. Like I don't know how complicated it is, but I think you pick someone up and strap them down. Now, but because the simplest task is so imperative to outcomes of good and bad, you focus. I'm assuming I've never seen you, but I'm assuming you literally practice doing a buckle or
We
tension, like all the little stuff.
we do things like you know what you need to do, but now we're going to start throwing curveballs at you. Your monitor's going to fail. Your radio's going to fail. You can't communicate with the hospital. Your partner just collapsed from heat exhaustion. You just backed over your partner. I mean, like you name it,
I
we
love it.
throw everything at them so that when the poop hits the fan, and it's going to hit the fan, that you go, oh, this is a Matt scenario. I get it. I love this.
Uh,
Right. And I think the corporate world doesn't throw enough of those curveballs at their people on a regular basis, and so when a massive flood hits, when power goes out for 4 days, and how do you get things moving, or the internet goes down, they don't know what to do. They've never practiced it. They don't have that ability to reach back in their file of their brain and say, "Here's the solution."
well, and I'll even tell you, I think companies do that kind of stuff actually pretty well. Take that same principle you have preparing for a flood. Guy goes out. Your partner gets run over by a truck. Whatever the military, they practice the most loading a gun and doing all the things they do because they know in emergency their half the brain capacity goes away, right? Because now you're doing muscle memory, and that's probably what you're teaching. And even then, we do it all for the acts of the job. If you make pipe, you're doing the same thing. Machine doesn't break. Like we do that type of preparation, practice, and discipline for the task of our job. We don't do it is in the soft skills of how we communicate with people, whether it's an employee or a customer. Listen, when I'm interviewing a salesperson, the first thing I do is throw them off. I want to see how they think on their feet. I turned off their monitor, right? I do something and I ask them a question, make a statement because I want to see how they think on their feet. There's a reason why most leaders go to have a difficult conversation with an employee and they leave with a to-do list. Not the employee, but the boss does. And the reason why is because they didn't scrimmage, they didn't practice this conversation of. So when I talk about practicing in business, I talk about practicing the conversation you're going to have with an employee or with a customer or with a peer. Listen, there's a reason why every organization or most organizations have silos in them. And it's not the people's fault, it's the leader's fault. It's because we blame other people's kids instead of our own. It's never my department's fault. My department has to do more work because their department doesn't do the work. We never see the flaws in our kids. And so I teach everything from how do you serve up to your bosses and your customers, to how do you serve your peers, to how do you serve your employees. And the way you serve your employees is you coach them. You make them practice. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Everyone in business in their office wants an environment with high intensity. You walk in, there's a buzz in it. You walk into Nordstrom's, it's an anniversary sale. Everybody's smiling. Things are on sale. The employees are always spectacular, happy to help you. Like there's a buzz. Everyone wants that buzz. But what they end up getting is tension. And the reason why there's only one ingredient that makes the difference is like salt and sugar and cookies, right? It's the only one ingredient that makes the difference between intensity and tension, and that is teaching. And what I mean by that is this: both of intention and intensity have high expectations. Guys, we're going to have the best day of our life. We're going to break our budget. We're going to do a spectacular job. We're going to be flawless out in our routes today when we're helping people survive in our EMS service. Like today's like high expectations, no mistakes. We operate flawlessly, and there's these high expectations. We're going to deliver this amount, and then there's a high level of accountability. As soon as someone messes up, we don't skip it. We don't ignore it. Both intensity and tension have a high level of expectations and a high level of accountability. Intensity has one major step in between. They teach people how to be successful at whatever they're expecting them to do. It goes beyond. Think about an EMS person, one of your drivers. They go out, monitor goes out, they save the person, but because they don't have the interpersonal skills, maybe they create conflict in a situation they didn't need to have. So how do you do that? You teach. So when you have high expectations and you teach people, not tell, teach, practice, get into character, teach them to be better at that job, and high accountability, you got high intensity because people know what you want. The goal is high. They know what to do and they know you're watching, and everyone loves to be. I don't care who says they don't want recognition. Everyone loves a trophy. Sometimes it's just a high five, but we love trophies because that is how we signal gratitude and how we matter. You take out teaching and you have high expectations and accountability. And I didn't teach you how well enough to do it, or I didn't work with you to get better. You're waiting for the food. Just waiting for the other foot to drop. It's like, am I going to get fired? Am I going to get fired? Am I going to get fired? Intensity over tension requires teaching.
That's great. Can you give me a real world example? Let's say that you have a CEO or some directors, and maybe there's some interpersonal conflicts. What would you do to go into this company and help them communicate more effectively? And how do you run role playing or do something like that to get the communication better when there hasn't been any?
Yeah. So all I will tell you is change, and you can Google this or type in, go to AI and say Nathan Jamail scrimmaging. I'll tell you stop role playing. I teach scrimmaging. Now the act is the same. We get into character and we pretend to be someone. That's the same. The difference is people hate role playing because we use it to test someone like a judge. We judge them. It says, "Oh, you think you know how to do it? I'm going to test you with role playing. Let's see what you do." And this is why people don't like it. This is why they say it's fake. And this is why everyone lies, because they do what you think you want to hear instead of what they will do. And scrimmaging is like sports. Everyone scrimmages and prepares for a game. And if you and I got into character and scrimmage this, and we're just doing it to prepare us for the opportunity, we would not fear judgment. And in fact, we would want to stink because there's no consequences when we stink in this. Now, I want to use that or clarify that because I think that's important for how you do this. Now, let me give you the scenario. I'll make sure I'm on the same page. I will check for clarification before I move forward. You're talking about, let's say you got a VP of sales and a VP of manufacturing, and they're blaming each other or they have conflict between their teams because they run two silos. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, or maybe even a more specific one. I know a lot of managers are afraid of conflict. They're afraid to have those difficult conversations when an employee is not doing their job, when an employee is not accountable for what they should be doing. So
Well,
how would you coach somebody through that?
all right. So let's do subordinate and superior, and then we'll do peers real quick if we have time.
Okay.
Subordinate superior. So a lot of people say they avoid conflict. I will tell you, I don't think it's a noble reason. I don't think conflict's comfortable for anyone, but we do it for our kids with our kids all the time. The coaches who coached us do it all the time, and we remember it 30 years later. Because as parents, when we have conflict with our kids, we're telling them they're doing something wrong because we love them and we want them to be better. And by the way, I never forget my father used to beat me, like, not my father didn't beat me, but would spank me with a belt. And like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. I'm like, I don't think so. Now I get it. Like I hate when I have to get on my girls. But I know if I'm gonna be a good father, I have to teach right and wrong. Okay. So we avoid conflict because we think we're doing something mean, and you're not. So that's the first excuse we use. I want to give you the other side of the perception. Most people, when I'm doing a workshop or a keynote, I'll say, how many of you had a boss that didn't hold your peer accountable? Like, you had a peer, they didn't work as hard as you, they showed up late, they never got in trouble, they didn't deliver, you always had to carry their weight, and the boss, you felt like they were just ignoring it. And everyone who's worked for someone says, oh, yes. And if you gave them 10 seconds, they could name them.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what did you think of your boss? And they said, didn't care, unaware, disengaged, didn't respect them. They don't care about me. All they care about was like all these negative perceptions of the boss. I said, now let me ask you a question. If you're a boss and you have someone on your team that's not delivering at the highest level they should, do your employees now think that of you? It's real easy to be the bad parent when you don't see others' perspectives. And so the first thing I do is get you to see, holy cow, maybe I'm being nice to the wrong people. Maybe I'm allowing my fear of conflict to get in the way of what my number one job is, which is creating culture. Listen, if someone's got a bad attitude, that's their fault. If you, Matt, as the owner of your company, is paying them, that's your fault. And if your people don't love their job because you have someone on your team who does not deserve to wear your name badge, that's your fault. You have the power to make the change, and most importantly, you have the responsibility. And so when you take accountability to that, it's not about being mean to one person. It's about doing what's right for the masses. And so that's how we get the understanding. Now we teach it. Now, once you understand, you're willing, okay, I'm willing to do this. Now let's remove all the excuses of why you don't. I don't know how to do it. Okay, let's teach it. Let's scrimmage it. It's not as hard as you think. If you're authentic and if your heart is to help someone, listen, I tell people all the time, Matt, I ask you how you think you're doing the job. And you say, well, I'm not doing that well. I say, Matt, you're doing terrible. And here's what I do believe. I think you're a talented person. And I don't know if it's a lack of knowledge or a lack of will or skill, but I think you deserve to be happy. And so we need to find a way to make you successful and happy at this job. Or quite candidly, we need to find a job that you can thrive in because you deserve to be happy. Life's too short. Don't take a job that you want to just get through. There's a lot of cool ones out there. Get one you like. Well, that candid conversation needs to happen. Now, let's even go into the deeper side of why we don't do this. One, it's not conflict. It's the fact that we don't have someone to replace them. Good people are hard to find because good people aren't looking for jobs. And so I might have to train someone. It takes me 6 months to find them, 6 months to train them, I'm 12 months out. Bad buddies better than nobody. Or more important, they've been with me for 20 years and I feel loyal to them. Loyalty is not based off tenure. You could be with me, Matt, for 30 years. That doesn't mean you're loyal to me. That means I paid you for 30 years. Loyalty is measured off your contribution, not your tenure. And so these are all the, like I have these conversations, Matt, every week with leaders. And so that conflict piece is first you teach it and then you remove all the excuses. You can't find someone new. And so I heard this just this week. I'm going to get rid of them when I find the replacement. And that's very common. Like, I'm not going to get rid of Matt yet because I need to find his replacement. I said,
So how should it be?
well, let's flip it around. If you heard your employee say, I hate Matt, I hate my job, and the only reason I'm here is because I haven't found another job, what do you think of that employee?
Not very much.
Would you want them to stay?
No, I have a philosophy, do the hard thing as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Because if it's going to be hard 10 minutes from now, it's still going to be hard. Or, 10 days from now, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did a cold plunge this morning. I didn't want to do it, right? But I said, it's going to be hard 10 minutes from now. It's going to be hard no matter what I do. So just do it. Embrace the suck. Get in there.
Well, but it's funny when we say an employee said that, like, oh, I term them. You said the same thing. The only difference instead of the job, it was the person. And so my next two questions I ask leaders, if they quit tomorrow, would you shut down the business? And they say no.
No.
I say, okay, here's my only advice to you. Don't fire them tomorrow. Go tell them how disappointed you are. Give them a chance to say, hey, Matt, listen, man, I'm really toying with finding a better fit. And here's why. You're not doing this, this, and this. Matt might go, boss, you never told me I was doing a bad job. I know. This is why I'm having this conversation. Give Matt the chance and then do your job. Listen, finding talent is the worst part of being a leader, whether it's your own business or work. So finding talent is the hardest part of being a job. This is why recruiters have a career, Indeed exists. The only problem is when you use all these websites, I'm not bashing on any job search websites, whether it's Indeed or any of the other ones, but all those people are looking for jobs. I'm looking for the guy who works for Matt, who loves Matt, because that's probably more about the person than where they work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so anyway, so all that ties into holding people. It's more than just difficult conversations. All that plays into why we do or do not hold someone accountable. On the flip side, I'll wrap this up on that point because I think it's important. When we talked about the peers, I deal with this quite a bit too, where you have a VP of sales and a VP of manufacturing, and I deal with this a lot, where they're blaming you. Do you have a silo? It's not my fault. It's their fault. And my challenge to each of them is, I think you should meet once a week. And in that meeting, say, hey, what does my team need to do for your team better? And when your peer says, hey, Matt, your guy, Matt, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. Don't say, well, it's not his fault or he's doing this. You look and say, you know what, brother? I'll talk to Matt and I'll get it fixed. My best friend might hear this podcast and it'll be funny for him, I guess, maybe hope. His son and my daughter are the exact same age. And we were best friends and we're neighbors. And anytime we got in a fight, I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, it's his son's fault because my daughter's perfect.
Of course.
If you ask my buddy John, who's my best friend and would drive across the country to do anything I asked him to do, if you asked him if I wasn't around, he'd say, no, no, it's his daughter. She's terrible. And the reason why, we don't really think that about each other's kids, but the reason why, it's never our kids' fault. It's never our employees' fault. I tell people, fix your kids and the other ones will fix theirs. Deal with your employees. When someone says your employees aren't doing the job, don't defend them. And don't ever say my guys have to do more because they're not doing their job, right? Find out what your guys can do more and then they'll do more.
That's really great. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
As we start to wrap up here, what are you working on and how can people find you?
So, man, I am working on another book. It's called the Leaders of Leaders Playbook. Don't hold me to that title. We're still in the developing. And at the same time, I'm traveling doing my keynotes workshops on my previous 5 books. The best way to find me, man, is nathanjamail.com. My books are available, of course, on Amazon and everywhere else. But the best way to find me is nathanjamail.com. And by the way, Matt, I don't know if you tried it. Have you tried Mini Me yet?
No, I have not.
So I have an AI dude. Like it's literally you can call me. It's a phone number. You call me and you can say, "Hey Nathan," and I go, "Hello, I'm Nathan. I'm Mini Me." And by the way, for younger people, Mini Me is from the movie Austin Powers, right? So I thought
All
that'd
right.
be funny. I think I'm the only one that finds it funny, but I have an AI bot, and so you can ask Nathan what you want. Another thing you can do, by the way, if any of your listeners are interested, if I'm a big AI guy, like I think AI is just off the hook awesome. If you use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can always say, "What would Nathan do in this situation?" And it will tell you exactly what I'd say.
How do we find your mini me?
That is a good question, Matt. How about I do this? How about I give you the number and will you put it in the show notes?
I will.
Did that work? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and and it's free. You just call and I'm available. He's available 7/24. And here's the cool thing about Mini Nathan. We spent many months developing him, his personality to his tone to my voice because it's my voice. But it is a closed AI, which means I do not pull off the internet. It's only based off my books and blogs. And the reason why is I wanted it to be an authentic answer, as if you were talking to me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And will you spell your last name for anybody who may not be familiar with how to find Nathan Jamail?
Matt, I'm gonna tell you, I just can't imagine not everybody knows who I am. I mean,
I know, I know.
President of the
It's
United
hard.
States, Nathan Jamail. It's crazy. No, my last name is Jamail.
All right. Anything else you want to wrap up with before we go?
No, I just wish I had your hair. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, you got all this hair. It's just not fair.
My dad, when he retired, he said, "You can't believe what a head of hair is worth when you get older." And I don't know.
I can tell you what I can tell you what it costs to try and get the head of hair, because I've done it a couple of times. But
Yeah.
it's worth a fortune. The only thing I'll tell you, because you say your audience is entrepreneurs, I'll give you. I'd like to share 2 thoughts, and then I'll close. As an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, 2 things I will ask you to think about. One, be willing to go broke. Kids don't care if you have money; they just care if you have love. And so, do it. If you want to, if you're going to do it, you're going to go. Be ready to go broke because it's more likely than not. And most people who start their own business will find that the valleys that you talked about are very narrow. They're deep, but they're narrow. If you can get through the narrowness of it, which means they don't last long, I promise you, you'll get up faster. So be willing to go broke. The second thing is be willing to do what you do because you love it, because there's a good chance that you're going to go 12 to 24 months without a paycheck. And if you can do those 2 things, you'll find profits to be a lot better than paychecks. And the second one I'll share with you is, you asked me what my valley was. And I told you I've gone broke twice, technically 3 times, but twice. Is I'm not afraid to go broke again. I always tell people it's not a matter of, now let's be clear, it's not part of my business plan or my strategy. Okay. I do a lot of hard work not to let it happen. I know this though. If something happens to my business and I lose money or go broke, as long as I continue to learn from people like you and other entrepreneurs that you and I know and stay focused and believe in what I'm doing, there's a reason why people go from millionaires to broke to millionaires to billionaires. It's a mindset, not an outcome. And so my challenge to you is don't be afraid of it. And when you get into it, just Stay focused. You'll get out of it.
Absolutely. The skills that you acquire on the journey stay with you no matter where you are in the path. So
Great, great.
yeah, we will end with that. Nathan, thank you so much for your wisdom. As always, great to talk to you and connect with you again. So until next time, take care.
Thanks, Matt. Take care, brother.
Thank you. You too. Want more? Click below for extra resources in our podcast vault. We have show summaries, action plans, and information about coaching.